The ruins of Velthara Prime stretched endlessly under a blood-red sky. Commander Jae-woo Kim stepped carefully through the broken crystal structures that once housed millions of beings. Now only silence remained. The Devourers had swept through this system 3 months ago, leaving nothing but empty shells and twisted metal behind. "Sir, we should move faster," said Soo-jin Park, the team medic. She checked her scanner nervously. "These readings are still unstable. The whole planet could collapse." Jae-woo nodded but kept walking. His salvage crew had been sent here to collect any technology that survived the attack. Earth needed every advantage it could get. The war against the Devourers was going badly, and humanity was running out of options. Ho-sung Lee, their engineer, pointed toward a massive temple complex ahead. "That building looks intact. Might find something useful inside." The 3 humans made their way across the crystalline wasteland. Their boots crunched on fragments of what had once been beautiful architecture. Jae-woo had seen many dead worlds, but Velthara Prime felt different. There was something sad about this place, like the planet itself was mourning. The temple was enormous. Its walls were made of some kind of living crystal that still glowed faintly despite the destruction. Strange symbols covered every surface, telling stories in a language none of them could read. "These markings are incredible," Soo-jin whispered. "They look almost like musical notes." "Stay focused," Jae-woo reminded them. "We are here for salvage, not sightseeing." They entered the main chamber. Their flashlights revealed towering pillars and elaborate artwork showing winged creatures flying among the stars. The ceiling had partially collapsed, creating a pile of debris in the center of the room. That was when they heard it. A sound so low it was almost below hearing, like the world's saddest song being hummed by someone far away. "What is that?" Ho-sung asked, raising his weapon. The sound came again. Definitely not mechanical. Something alive was making that noise. Jae-woo approached the debris pile carefully. As he got closer, he could see something moving underneath the fallen stones. Something big. "Help me move these rocks," he ordered. "Sir, we should call for backup first," Soo-jin protested. "No time. Whatever is under there might die before help arrives." The 3 humans worked together, lifting and pushing the heavy crystal fragments. After 20 minutes of hard work, they had cleared enough space to see what lay beneath. Jae-woo stopped breathing. A dragon, an actual dragon, lay trapped under the remaining debris. But this was unlike any creature from Earth's myths. Its scales were pure white like fresh snow or polished pearl. They seemed to glow with their own inner light. The creature was massive, easily 30 feet long, with elegant wings folded against its sides. Its eyes opened as they worked. They were the color of starlight, ancient and deep. Looking into them, Jae-woo felt like he was staring into the history of the universe itself. The dragon's voice entered his mind without using sound. "You should not be here, small ones. This place is dying. As am I." Soo-jin gasped and nearly dropped her medical scanner. Ho-sung raised his weapon again, but Jae-woo gestured for him to lower it. "We are here to help," Jae-woo said aloud, not sure if the creature could understand him. "Help?" The dragon's mental voice carried a mixture of surprise and sadness. "I am the last of the celestial Drakmori. My people sang the songs that kept stars in their proper places. Now we are gone, and the universe grows quiet." The dragon tried to move but could not. A massive crystal beam pinned his lower body to the ground. Dark liquid that might have been blood pooled around the edges. "My name is Baek-ho," the dragon continued. "I have lived for 100,000 of your years. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I have heard the birth songs of 1,000,000 worlds. And now I will die alone in the ruins of the last place that remembered the old songs." Jae-woo felt something twist in his chest. He had seen a lot of death in this war. Humans, aliens, entire species wiped out by the Devourers. But there was something about this ancient creature's quiet acceptance that bothered him deeply. "We can get you out of here," he said. "Our ship has medical facilities." Baek-ho's starlight eyes focused on him with interest. "Why would you help me? I am not of your kind." "Does that matter?" The dragon was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his mental voice was softer. Your species is young. Most young species care only for themselves, yet you offer aid to a dying stranger. Sujin had been scanning the dragon with her medical equipment. She looked up with a grim expression. His life signs are fading fast. Internal injuries, massive blood loss. Even if we could move that beam, I do not think he would survive transport. Hosung was examining the crystal beam that trapped the dragon. This thing weighs at least 10 tons. Our equipment cannot move it. We would need heavy machinery. Then, we call for help, Jae-woo decided. Sir, Sujin said quietly. Our orders are to complete the salvage mission and return immediately. Command will not approve a rescue operation for an alien creature. Jae-woo knew she was right. Earth's military was stretched thin. They could not spare resources on what most would consider a pointless gesture. But looking into Byako's ancient eyes, he found he did not care about orders. You two return to the ship, he said. Tell them I am conducting an extended survey of this site. Jae-woo, you cannot stay here alone, Sujin protested. I am not leaving him to die by himself. Hosung stepped forward. Sir, with respect, this is not logical. The creature is dying anyway. Your presence will not change that. Baekho's voice entered all their minds. The human speaks truth. I will be gone before your sun rises again. You should save yourselves. But Jae-woo had already made his decision. Something about the dragon's dignity in the face of death reminded him of the best parts of humanity, the parts worth fighting for. Go, he told his team. That is an order. Sujin left him her medical supplies and emergency rations. Hosung gave him extra batteries for his equipment. Both looked unhappy, but they followed orders. When they were gone, Jae-woo sat down beside the trapped dragon. Baekho watched him with those starlight eyes. You are a strange creature, the dragon said. Why do you choose to share the final hours of someone you do not know? Jae-woo thought about it. Because everyone deserves to have someone with them at the end, and because maybe you have stories worth hearing. For the first time since they had met, something like warmth entered the dragon's mental voice. Stories. Yes, I have many of those. Would you like to hear about the time I saw your son being born? As the alien sunset painted the ruins in shades of gold and crimson, Jae-woo settled in to keep watch over the last dragon in the universe. He had no idea that this simple act of kindness would change everything. The night on Velthara Prime was cold and quiet. Jae-woo sat beside the trapped dragon, watching Baekho's breathing grow weaker with each passing hour. The ancient creature had been telling stories about the old days when his people flew between the stars, but now even talking seemed to tire him. Tell me about your kind, Baekho said, his mental voice barely a whisper. I have watched humans for only a short time in my long life. You are different from other young species. Jae-woo shifted on the hard crystal floor. Different how? Most young races think only of conquest or survival, but you stayed here with me a stranger. This is unusual. Jae-woo smiled in the darkness. Maybe we are just stubborn. My people have a saying, we do not leave anyone behind. Even enemies? Sometimes especially enemies. During our last great war on Earth, human soldiers would risk their lives to save wounded enemies. It made no sense to military leaders, but soldiers did it anyway. Baekho was quiet for a moment. Your species confuses me. You fight each other constantly, yet you show kindness to outsiders. We are complicated, Jae-woo admitted, but I think our complications make us stronger, not weaker. As the hours passed, Jae-woo found himself telling more stories to keep the dying dragon's mind off his pain. He talked about Earth, about human culture, about the silly things people did even during wartime. You want to hear something funny? Jae-woo said as dawn approached. Last month, our newest battleship had a problem with its gravity systems. The chief engineer was trying to fix the toilets in the officer quarters when the gravity reversed. Suddenly, Baekho's starlight eyes flickered with interest. What happened? Picture this. 10 high-ranking admirals all floating upside down in a bathroom covered in soap and water, screaming for help. The engineer was so shocked he forgot to turn off the water recycling system. It took 3 hours to get them down. Jae-woo chuckled at the memory. The admirals were so embarrassed they classified the whole incident as top secret. Now we have the most heavily guarded toilet repair manual in human space. The absurdity of it all hit him again, and Jae-woo began to laugh harder. It felt good to laugh after so many dark months of war. The sound echoed through the crystal chamber, bright and warm against the cold alien architecture. Then something impossible happened. Light began to shine from Baekho's scales. Not the soft glow they had shown before, but brilliant white radiance that filled the entire chamber. The dragon's breathing deepened, becoming stronger and more regular. Jae-woo stopped laughing and stared in amazement. Before his eyes, the dragon was changing. The wounds on his body began to close. His scales became brighter and more lustrous. Even his size seemed to increase slightly. "What just happened?" Jae-woo whispered. Baekho lifted his great head higher than he had been able to do for hours. His mental voice was stronger too. "I do not know. When you made that sound, that laugh, something changed inside me. I feel younger, stronger." The dragon studied Jae-woo with new intensity. "In all my 100,000 years, I have never experienced anything like this. Your laughter touched something deep in my essence, something connected to the very force that creates life." Jae-woo looked at his hands as if they might hold answers. "I do not understand, it was just laughter." "No," Baekho said firmly. "It was pure joy. Joy without purpose, without reason. Just the simple happiness of being alive. My people used to sing songs of creation, but what you just did, it was like hearing the universe laugh at its own wonder." The improvement in Baekho's condition was remarkable, but limited. He was still trapped under the crystal beam, still badly injured, but the change was real and visible. "Can you do it again?" the dragon asked hopefully. Jae-woo tried to laugh, but nothing happened. The sound felt forced and empty. "It does not work when I try to make it happen. True joy cannot be forced," Baekho agreed. "It must come naturally from the heart." They sat together in thoughtful silence as the alien sun rose higher. Both were trying to understand what had occurred. Jae-woo's mind raced with possibilities and questions. Baekho seemed to be remembering things from his long past. "There are legends among my people," the dragon said slowly, "stories of a sound that could reverse the flow of time itself. We believed it was just a myth, something from the earliest days of creation. And now? Now I wonder if your species carries something that was lost to the rest of us long ago. The ability to touch the fundamental joy that sparked the universe into existence." Before Jae-woo could respond, they heard the sound of approaching engines. His rescue team had returned, and they were not alone. Soo-jin was the first to enter the chamber, followed by Ho-sung and several other humans Jae-woo did not recognize. One of them was a woman in a science officer's uniform with doctor's insignia. "Commander Kim," Soo-jin said with relief. "We brought help. This is Dr. Yuri Choi, a xenobiologist from the research division." Dr. Choi was already scanning Baekho with advanced equipment. Her eyes widened as she read the results. "This is impossible. According to my readings, this creature's cellular structure has regenerated significantly in the past few hours." "How is that possible?" Ho-sung asked. Jae-woo and Baekho exchanged a look. The dragon's mental voice touched only Jae-woo's mind. "Perhaps we should not reveal everything at once. Your people might not be ready for this knowledge." Jae-woo nodded slightly. "The dragon has natural healing abilities," he told the others. "But he is still badly injured." Dr. Choi continued her scans. "The life signs are much stronger than they should be for injuries this severe. It is almost as if something reversed the damage." "Can we move him?" Soo-jin asked. "Not safely. The beam is still crushing his lower body. We need heavy equipment to lift it." Ho-sung was already working on the problem. "I have called for engineering support. They should arrive within the hour." As the humans worked to organize a proper rescue effort, Baekho spoke privately to Jae-woo again. This power you have shown, it could change everything. But it could also be dangerous if the wrong people learn about it. What do you mean? If human laughter can reverse time itself, what might happen if that power falls into the wrong hands? And what might it cost you to use it? Jae-woo had been so amazed by the dragon's healing that he had not considered the larger implications. Now, watching Dr. Choi's excited face as she documented the impossible recovery, he began to understand that their discovery might be bigger than just saving one dragon's life. "We will figure it out together," he promised Baek-ho. "Whatever this means, we will face it together." The dragon's ancient eyes showed something that might have been hope. "Together. Yes, I think I would like that very much." Outside, the sound of heavy machinery announced the arrival of the rescue equipment. Soon they would lift the crystal beam and free the last dragon in the universe. But both Jae-woo and Baek-ho knew that their real journey was just beginning. 3 weeks after the rescue of Baek-ho, Velthara Prime had become the most important place in human space. Ships arrived daily, bringing scientists, military officers, and diplomats from across the galaxy. The dead world now buzzed with activity, as everyone tried to understand the miracle they had witnessed. Baek-ho had been freed from the crystal beam and moved to a specially built habitat near the temple ruins. His recovery continued to amaze everyone. Dr. Yuri Choi had documented 7 separate incidents where Jae-woo's genuine laughter had reversed the dragon's aging. Each time, Baek-ho appeared roughly 50 years younger. "The mathematics are staggering," Professor Won-shik-han explained to the gathered researchers. The temporal mechanics expert had arrived from Earth just 2 days earlier. "If the dragon is truly 100,000 years old, we would need 2,000 genuine laughs to return him to his youth." Admiral Tae-min Shin, commander of the research fleet, looked skeptical. "That assumes the effect remains constant. What if it gets weaker over time? Or stronger," Dr. Choi added. "We still do not understand the mechanism. Commander Kim's laughter seems to tap into something fundamental about time and life itself." Jae-woo sat quietly in the corner of the briefing room, feeling uncomfortable with all the attention. He had spent the morning with Baek-ho, and the dragon's warnings about the danger of this power weighed heavily on his mind. The dragon had shared more of his people's ancient knowledge. The celestial Drakmori had been the galaxy's historians and peacekeepers, using their songs to maintain the delicate balance between order and chaos. Their destruction by the Devourers had left a hole in the cosmic harmony that was still growing. "Commander Kim," Admiral Shin said, drawing his attention back to the meeting, "we need to discuss the practical applications of your ability." "What do you mean, sir?" "Think about it. If human laughter can reverse aging in this species, what else might it affect? Could we use this power to heal other beings, to restore damaged worlds?" Dr. Choi held up her scanner readings. "The energy signatures during each laughing incident are unlike anything we have seen. It is as if reality itself bends around the sound." Professor Han nodded excitedly. "The temporal displacement is localized but incredibly precise. We are seeing time manipulation at a cellular level without any of the usual paradox effects. Which brings us to the bigger question," Admiral Shin continued. "How do we control and direct this power?" Jae-woo stood up abruptly. "You cannot control it. It only works when the laughter is real, when it comes from genuine joy or humor. The moment you try to use it as a weapon or tool, it stops working." "But surely with practice, the Admiral began. "No," Baek-ho's mental voice interrupted, reaching everyone in the room. The dragon had been listening from his habitat nearby. "The human speaks truth. This power comes from the purest part of his species' nature. Any attempt to weaponize or exploit it will destroy it completely." The room fell silent, as everyone absorbed the dragon's words. Finally, Heejin Song, the diplomatic attaché, spoke up. "We have another problem. Word about the laughing dragon miracle has spread beyond human space. 3 alien coalitions have sent representatives requesting meetings." "What kind of representatives?" Admiral Shin asked. "The Healers Alliance wants to study the phenomenon to help restore species damaged by the Devourers. The temporal guard considers it a dangerous violation of natural law. And the Remnant Council. She paused. They want to claim Bekho as a protected cultural artifact. Jae-woo felt a chill run down his spine. What does that mean? It means they want to take him away from us, Dr. Choi said grimly. They argue that as the last of his species, he belongs to the galaxy, not to humanity. Bekho's presence touched their minds again. There is something else you should know. Each time Jae-woo uses his laughter to heal me, he pays a price. Everyone turned to stare at Jae-woo. What kind of price? Dr. Choi demanded, already reaching for her medical scanner. Time flows both ways, the dragon explained sadly. As I grow younger, he grows slightly older. The exchange is small but real. If he were to restore me completely to my youth, it would cost him decades of his own life. The room erupted in concerned voices. Dr. Choi immediately began scanning Jae-woo, her face growing pale as she read the results. He is right, she whispered. Your cellular aging has accelerated. You have aged approximately 6 months in the past 3 weeks. Jae-woo felt numb. He had suspected something was wrong when he noticed new lines around his eyes and gray hairs appearing overnight. But hearing it confirmed was different. Why did you not tell us? Admiral Shin demanded. Because he did not know, Bekho answered. I only discovered it myself yesterday when my memories began to clear as I grew younger. I can now remember things that happened recently, including the moment I first sensed the life force exchange. Professor, Han was frantically calculating on his tablet. If the rate remains constant, completing the dragon's restoration would cost Commander Kim approximately 25 years of his life. That is not acceptable, Admiral Shin stated firmly. We will find another way. But before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Emergency lights flashed as the communication officer's voice echoed through the speakers. All personnel to emergency stations. We have multiple unidentified contacts approaching the system. Configuration suggests Devourer scouts. The meeting broke up in controlled chaos as everyone rushed to their positions. Jae-woo found himself running toward Bekho's habitat, driven by an instinct to protect his friend. The dragon was already rising to his feet when Jae-woo arrived. Bekho's restored vitality was evident in every movement. His scales shone like starlight, and his eyes burned with ancient fire. They have found us, Bekho said grimly. The Devourers are drawn to disturbances in the cosmic harmony. Our healing sessions have created ripples they can follow. Can we fight them? Not with conventional weapons. The Devourers exist partially outside normal space and time. They consume not just matter and energy, but the fundamental forces that hold reality together. Through the habitat's transparent walls, they could see ships launching from the human fleet. Admiral Shin's voice crackled over the communication system, organizing the defense. But Jae-woo could see the fear in the faces of the crew members running past. They all knew the stories about the Devourers. Entire star systems had fallen, to them. Billions of beings had been consumed, leaving only empty void behind. There might be a way, Bekho said slowly, but it would require a great sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? The dragon's ancient eyes met his. The songs of my people were not just pretty music. They were weapons against the darkness, tools to maintain the balance between creation and destruction. If I could remember the old songs completely, you would need to be restored to your full youth, Jae-woo realized, and you would need to give up most of your remaining years to make it possible. Outside, the first Devourer ships appeared on the edge of the system. They looked like tears in space itself, dark wounds against the stars that hurt to look at. Directly, Jae-woo thought about all the people on the research ships, about Dr. Choi and Soo-jin and Ho-sung. He thought about Earth and the billions of humans who had no idea their fate might depend on one man's willingness to laugh in the face of cosmic horror. How long do I have to decide? He asked. Not long, Bekho replied, watching the approaching darkness. They will be here within hours. Jae-woo closed his eyes and made his choice. When he opened them again, they were filled with determined light. Then we better get started. The Devourer scouts moved through space like living shadows, leaving trails of nothingness wherever they passed. Admiral Shin's fleet had engaged them at the system's edge, but conventional weapons passed right through the enemy ships without effect. In Bekho's habitat, Jae-woo sat cross-legged on the floor, trying to find the joy needed to continue the dragon's restoration. It was harder now, knowing each laugh cost him months or years of his life. The weight of that knowledge made genuine happiness feel impossible. "You are thinking too much," Bekho observed gently. "Joy cannot be forced or calculated. It must come from the heart." "How can I be joyful when I know I am dying?" Jae-woo asked. The dragon's starlight eyes grew thoughtful. "Let me tell you what I have learned in my long life. Death is not the opposite of joy. Fear is. Fear of loss, fear of pain, fear of the unknown. But joy is the celebration of existence itself, regardless of how long it lasts." Dr. Choi burst into the habitat, her face streaked with tears. "The Devourers have broken through our outer defenses. 3 ships have already been consumed. We have maybe 2 hours before they reach the planet." Behind her came Soo-jin and Ho-sung, along with Professor Han and several other researchers. They all looked to Jae-woo with desperate hope. "Can you do it?" Soo-jin asked quietly. "Can you restore him enough to fight those things?" Jae-woo looked around at all the frightened faces. These people had become his friends over the past weeks. Dr. Choi had shared stories about her daughter back on Earth. Ho-sung had taught him to play an ancient Korean card game during their off hours. Soo-jin had saved his life more times than he could count. "I can try," he said. But as the hours passed and the Devourer ships drew closer, Jae-woo found himself unable to produce the genuine laughter needed. Every joke fell flat. Every funny story seemed hollow. The knowledge of his sacrifice hung over everything like a dark cloud. Bekho had grown somewhat younger, but not nearly enough. The dragon estimated he would need to be restored by at least 10,000 years to remember the most powerful creation songs. At the current rate, that would cost Jae-woo his entire remaining lifespan. "There has to be another way," Dr. Choi insisted, pacing back and forth. "Some method that does not require you to die." "We have been through this," Professor Han said tiredly. "The temporal exchange appears to be fundamental to the process. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred." Outside the habitat windows, they could see the human fleet retreating toward the planet. Admiral Shin's voice crackled over the communication system, reporting massive casualties. The Devourers were not just destroying ships, they were consuming the very space around them, leaving holes in reality that made rescue impossible. "Maybe that is the problem," Jae-woo said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" Soo-jin asked. "I keep thinking about this as a sacrifice, as something terrible I have to do. But what if I think about it differently?" Bekho's mental presence grew stronger, interested. "Explain." Jae-woo stood up and walked to the window. In the distance, he could see the approaching Devourer fleet. They looked like moving wounds in space, dark and wrong and utterly terrifying. But beyond them, stars still shone. Life still existed. Hope still mattered. "What if this is not about dying?" he said. "What if it is about living? About choosing to spend my life in the most meaningful way possible?" He turned back to face his friends. "I have been a soldier my whole adult life. I have fought in a dozen battles, killed enemies, watched friends die, but what have I really accomplished? What legacy am I leaving behind?" Dr. Choi started to protest, but he held up his hand. "But this is different. If I can save not just Earth, but the entire galaxy, if I can help restore the cosmic balance that has been broken, is that not worth a few decades of ordinary life?" "Jae-woo," Soo-jin said softly, "you do not have to prove anything to anyone." "I am not trying to prove anything. I am trying to choose joy over fear." He sat back down next to Bekho and looked into the dragon's ancient eyes. "Tell me about the stars, old friend. Tell me about the time you watched solar systems being born." Bekho understood immediately. Instead of focusing on the approaching doom, he began to share his most wonderful memories. He told Jae-woo about dancing in the rings of gas giants, about seeing the first flowers bloom on 1,000 worlds, about the music his people made when they were young and full of hope. As the stories continued, Jae-woo found himself genuinely smiling. Not because he was forcing it, but because the universe Baekho described was so beautiful, so full of wonder and possibility. And the baby stars, Baekho continued, they giggle when they first ignite. Did you know that? The sound travels through space as gravitational waves like cosmic laughter echoing through the galaxy. The image was so absurd and delightful that Jae-woo began to chuckle, then to laugh, then to roar with genuine mirth at the idea of newborn stars giggling like children. Light exploded from Baekho's scales. The dragon's form rippled and changed, growing younger and more vital. His wings spread wide, no longer the tired appendages of an ancient creature, but the powerful instruments of a being in his prime. But something else was happening too. As Baekho grew younger, his memories were becoming clearer and more recent. And those recent memories included something terrible. "Stop!" the dragon said suddenly, his mental voice filled with horror. "Jae-woo, you must stop!" But Jae-woo was still laughing, caught up in the joy of imagining giggling stars. Another wave of temporal energy washed over Baekho, reversing another century of his life. "What is it?" Dr. Choi asked, noticing the dragon's distress. Baekho's voice filled all their minds, heavy with a grief so profound it made the air itself seem to weep. "I remember now. I remember how the devourers began." The laughter died on Jae-woo's lips. "What do you mean?" "They were not always destroyers. Long ago, they were the harmonious ones, beings of pure joy and creation. They sang alongside my people, helping to weave the cosmic songs that maintained reality's balance." The dragon's form shuddered as more memories surfaced. But something went wrong. A great catastrophe, a cosmic tragedy so profound that it shattered their ability to feel joy. Without joy, they could no longer create. And beings who cannot create must consume to continue existing. Professor Han was frantically taking notes. "Are you saying the devourers are a fallen species?" "I am saying they are us," Baekho replied with terrible sadness. "They are what my people could have become if we had lost our connection to the fundamental joy of existence. They are what any species becomes when they forget how to laugh at the universe's beautiful absurdity." The implications hit everyone, at once. Dr. Choi covered her mouth with her hands. Soo-jin sat down heavily. Ho-sung stared at the approaching fleet with new understanding. "If that is true," Jae-woo said slowly, "then maybe we do not need to fight them." "What do you mean?" Admiral Shin's voice came over the communication system. He had been listening to their conversation. Jae-woo looked at Baekho, then at his friends, then out at the stars that baby suns had supposedly giggled into existence. "Maybe we need to help them remember how to laugh." Outside, the Devourer fleet had reached the outer planets. But instead of the mindless destroyers everyone expected, Jae-woo now saw them as something else entirely. The galaxy's lost children, consumed by a grief so profound they had forgotten what joy felt like. The question was whether one human's laughter could heal wounds that old and deep. There was only one way to find out. The Devourer fleet hung in space above Velthara Prime like a wound in reality itself. Their ships had stopped moving, as if they were waiting for something, or listening. Admiral Shin's remaining forces maintained a defensive position, but nobody was firing. The revelation about the Devourer's true nature had changed everything. How do you fight an enemy who is actually a victim? In the crystal habitat, Jae-woo sat with Baekho as the dragon continued to remember. Each memory that surfaced was more painful than the last. The fall of the harmonious ones had not been quick or clean. It had been a slow spiral into despair that took thousands of years to complete. They tried to save themselves, Baekho explained, his mental voice heavy with ancient grief. When they realized they were losing their ability to create, they tried to consume the joy of other species. But joy cannot be stolen. It can only be shared willingly. Dr. Choi was monitoring both Jae-woo and the dragon with her equipment. "Your aging has accelerated," she warned Jae-woo. If you continue at this rate, I know, he replied calmly. Gray streaks now marked his hair, and lines had appeared around his eyes. But his spirit felt lighter than it had in months. How much younger does Beko need to become? To remember the first song, the one that began creation itself, I would need to return to my earliest memories. The dragon replied. Perhaps 20,000 years of reversal. Professor Han looked up from his calculations. That would cost you approximately 30 years of life. You would survive, but I would be an old man, Jae-woo finished. I understand. Sujin grabbed his arm. You do not have to do this. We can find another way. What other way? Fighting them will only make things worse. They are not evil, just lost. Someone needs to show them the way home. Before anyone could argue further, Hyejin Song's voice crackled over the communication system. We are receiving a transmission from the Devourer fleet. It is strange. Put it through, Admiral Shin ordered. The sound that filled the habitat was unlike anything they had ever heard. It was not quite music and not quite speech, but something between the two. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, like the sound of dying stars trying to sing lullabies. Beko translated for them. They are asking about the laughter. They say they have not heard genuine joy in so long they had forgotten what it sounded like. They want to know if we can teach them. Can we? Dr. Choi asked. I do not know, the dragon admitted, but I think we must try. If we fail, they will consume this entire system and move on to the next. If we succeed, we might save the galaxy. Jae-woo finished. He stood up and walked to the center of the habitat. What do I need to do? Beko's form began to glow with anticipation. You must laugh with complete joy, holding nothing back. Not just for me, but for them. Your laughter must be pure enough to remind them what they lost, and if it does not work, then we all die together. But at least we will have tried to heal instead of harm. Jae-woo nodded and closed his eyes. He thought about everything that had brought him to this moment. The war that had consumed so many lives, the despair that had spread across the galaxy, the fear that had driven species apart instead of bringing them together. But then he thought about other things. About Sujin's terrible jokes during their long missions. About Ho-sung's determination to fix everything, even when it was not broken. About Dr. Choi's excitement when she discovered something new. About Bekho's stories of giggling baby stars. He thought about humanity itself, with all its flaws and contradictions. A species that could wage war and make peace with equal passion. A people who could find humor in the darkest situations and hope in the most desperate circumstances. And then he thought about the Devourers, floating in space above them. Not monsters, but broken beings who had forgotten how to smile. Children who had lost their way in the cosmic dark and needed someone to remind them that light still existed. The laughter started small, just a chuckle at the absurdity of it all. Here he was, a simple human soldier, about to try to heal the galaxy's oldest wound with nothing but joy. But as the laughter grew, it became something more. It became every moment of happiness he had ever experienced, every shared joke with friends, every sunset that had taken his breath away, every small act of kindness that had restored his faith in people. The laughter became a celebration of existence itself, a defiant declaration that no matter how dark the universe became, joy would always find a way to survive. Light exploded from Bekho as the dragon was swept backward through millennia of memories. His form shifted and changed, becoming younger and more radiant with each passing second. Ancient knowledge flooded back to him, songs that had been sung at the dawn of creation itself. But something else was happening too. The laughter was not just affecting Bekho, it was rippling outward, carried on gravitational waves and quantum fluctuations, reaching toward the Devourer fleet. The response was immediate. The dark ships began to shimmer and change. The wounds in space they had created started to heal, and from their vessels came a sound that had not been heard in the galaxy for eons, the beginning of remembered joy. Jae-woo laughed until he could laugh no more. When he finally stopped, he was an old man with white hair and deeply lined skin, but his eyes still sparkled with the same joy that had lit up the cosmos. Bekho had been transformed completely, no longer the ancient dragon they had rescued. He now appeared as he had at the very beginning of his existence. Young, powerful, and filled with the knowledge of creation itself. "It is time," the dragon said, his mental voice now carrying harmonics that made reality itself seem to sing. Time for the first song. What came next was indescribable. Bekho began to sing, but it was not a song made of sound. It was a song made of pure creation, of joy given form and substance. The melody reached across space and touched every devourer ship. One by one, the dark vessels began to change. The shadow stuff that composed them dissolved, revealing the beautiful, crystalline forms beneath. The harmonious ones were remembering who they had been before grief consumed them. Their own. Voices joined Bekho's song, tentative at first, then with growing confidence. The combined harmony spread outward, healing the wounds they had torn in space-time. Consumed planets began to shimmer back into existence. Destroyed stars reignited. Dr. Choi was crying as she watched her instruments register the impossible. Life signs are returning to dead systems throughout the sector. They are not just healing the damage, they are undoing it. Admiral Shin's voice came over the communication system, filled with wonder. The Devourer fleet is... They are leaving. Not retreating, just moving on. They are singing as they go. As the last of the transformed ships disappeared into hyperspace, Bekho's song gradually faded. The young dragon looked at Jae-woo with infinite gratitude. "You did it," he said. "You reminded them of joy. The galaxy is healing." Jae-woo smiled. Despite his aged appearance, "We did it, all of us together." Soo-jin helped him to a chair. "How do you feel?" "Old," he admitted with a chuckle. "But happy, very happy." Dr. Choi was already planning. "We need to establish protocols for this. The laughter protocol, we will call it. A way to help other species rediscover joy when they lose it. And we need to document everything," Professor Han added excitedly. "This could change how we understand the fundamental nature of reality itself." Admiral Shin arrived at the habitat an hour later, his face showing a mixture of exhaustion and amazement. The transformed devourers have made contact with other species throughout the galaxy. They are sharing the songs of creation, teaching others how to heal instead of harm. "What about Bekho?" Jae-woo asked. "He is no longer the last of his kind." The young dragon's eyes sparkled with joy. "The songs are teaching willing beings how to become Drakmori, not the same as my original people, but something new and wonderful. A family of choice instead of birth." As the days passed, and the galaxy began to truly heal, visitors came from across known space to meet the human who had laughed the universe back into balance. But Jae-woo, now appearing decades older than his actual age, preferred to spend his time with friends. He would sit with Bekho in the crystal gardens that had grown around the temple ruins, listening to the young dragon practice the ancient songs. The melodies had power beyond imagination, but they also carried simple beauty that made flowers bloom and children smile. "Do you ever regret it?" Soo-jin asked one evening, as they watched the sunset paint the crystal formations in shades of gold and purple. Jae-woo considered the question seriously. His hair was completely white now, and he moved with the careful steps of an elderly man. But his mind was sharp and his heart was light. "Regret saving the galaxy?" he said with a gentle smile. "How could I regret that? But you gave up so much. Time. You could have lived a full life, had a family, grown old naturally." "Soo-jin," he interrupted kindly, "I did live a full life, just not a long one. And what I accomplished in these few months, it will echo through eternity." Dr. Choi approached them carrying her daily medical reports. "The transformation continues to spread," she reported. 17 more species have learned the laughter protocol. The Healers Alliance has officially adopted it as their primary therapy for traumatic cosmic grief. Ho-sung jogged up to join them, still young and energetic. The engineering corps wants to name their new ship after you, he told Jae-woo. The JSS Cosmic Laughter. What do you think? I think that is the most ridiculous name for a starship I have ever heard, Jae-woo replied, then burst into delighted laughter. I love it. Even now, months later, his laughter still had a special quality. It did not reverse aging anymore, but it had other effects. Plants grew faster around him. Sad people found themselves smiling. Even the most serious scientists could not help but chuckle when he laughed. Baik-ho landed gracefully beside them, his young form magnificent in the fading light. The Council of New Drakmori has made a decision, he announced. We want to establish a memorial here on Velthara Prime, not just for my fallen people, but for what happened here. A reminder that creation is always stronger than destruction. What kind of memorial? Dr. Choi asked. A garden, a place where beings from across the galaxy can come to remember how to laugh, how to find joy even in darkness. We will call it the Garden of First Laughter. Admiral Shin had retired from active duty and now served as the planetary coordinator for Velthara Prime. The dead world had become a pilgrimage site, drawing visitors who wanted to understand how one human's joy had changed everything. The first transport of school children arrives next week, he reported during their evening meeting. Teachers from 12 different species want to bring their students here to learn about the power of laughter. What will you tell them? Jae-woo asked. The truth, that a simple human soldier saved the galaxy by choosing joy over fear. That laughter is not just entertainment, but the fundamental force that keeps the universe creating instead of consuming. As the weeks turned to months, the Garden of First Laughter grew into something extraordinary. Crystal formations sang, gentle melodies when the wind passed through them. Flowers from 100 worlds bloomed in impossible harmony. Children of every species played together, their laughter adding to the garden's magic. Jae-woo established a small cottage near the Aidu original temple, where he would spend his days talking with visitors. Young soldiers would come seeking wisdom. Scientists would arrive with questions about the nature of joy. Philosophers would debate the cosmic implications of laughter with him. But his favorite visitors were always the children. They did not care about temporal mechanics or galactic politics. They just wanted to hear funny stories and learn new games. And when they laughed at his silly jokes, their joy was so pure it made the crystal formations glow with rainbow light. One day, as Jae-woo sat in his garden watching a group of young aliens chase butterfly-like creatures that sang as they flew, Baik-ho settled beside him. Do you know what the most beautiful part of all this is? The dragon asked. What? It is not ending with us. The laughter is spreading, being shared, creating new forms of joy we never imagined. Your sacrifice did not just save the galaxy, it taught the galaxy how to save itself. Jae-woo nodded, watching a small child from the Healers Alliance successfully catch one of the singing butterflies. The creature perched on her finger and began to hum a tiny melody that made everyone within earshot smile. The universe has always been singing, he said quietly. We just had to remember how to listen. Years passed. Jae-woo grew older and frailer, but his spirit remained bright. The Garden of First Laughter became the most sacred site in the known galaxy, a place where beings came not to worship but to remember the simple truth that joy was stronger than despair. On his final day, Jae-woo sat in his favorite spot overlooking the memorial crystal that bore the names of all the celestial Drakmori who had fallen to the Devourers, but now it also bore new names. The harmonious ones who had been restored, the new Drakmori who had chosen transformation, and the countless beings across the galaxy who had learned to sing the songs of creation. Soo-jin, now director of the garden, sat beside him holding his hand. Dr. Choi was there too, along with Ho-sung and Admiral Shin. All of them had aged naturally while their friend had sacrificed his years for the cosmos. Any regrets? Soo-jin asked one last time. Jae-woo's eyes, though clouded with age, still sparkled with the same joy that had saved the galaxy. Only one, he whispered. What? I regret that I will not be here to see what comes next. The galaxy is learning to laugh again, Soo-jin. Can you imagine what wonders that will create? As the sun set over Velthara Prime, Jaewu closed his eyes and smiled. In the distance, the sound of children's laughter mixed with the harmonic songs of the crystal formations. The universe was singing, and for the first time in eons, it was a song of pure joy. Bayek Ho, now ancient in wisdom though young in body, sang the final song for his friend. It was not a song of mourning but of celebration. A melody that told the story of a simple human who had looked at the darkest moment in galactic history and chosen to laugh. The song spread outward from Velthara, Prime, carried on cosmic winds to every inhabited world, and wherever it was heard, beings stopped what they were doing and smiled, remembering that no matter how dark the universe became, there would always be those brave enough to choose joy over fear, creation over consumption, laughter over despair. In the Garden of First Laughter, a new crystal formation grew overnight, shaped like a human figure with arms outstretched toward the stars. Children from across the galaxy would come to play around it for generations, their laughter ensuring that Jaewu's gift to the universe would never be forgotten. The galaxy had learned to laugh again, and in that laughter, it had found its way home.